stars. Not every light is gonna guide you. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid.
Today we're taking a look at the DJI Action 3. This camera goes back to its roots by taking the original design of the DJI Osmo Action and combining it with some of the features of the Action 2. So here we have the magnetic attachment on the bottom, which is really convenient and works super well for attaching all sorts of different accessories to this camera. You have a front display, which is really useful to set up your shot and see what's actually in frame. And of course you have the back display to change all of your settings and set up your modes. Now this camera comes in a couple of different bundles. I got the Adventure combo, which comes with this really cool case for charging up your batteries. We have 3 in total. And it's a very slim and compact case. You also have a couple of different magnetic mounts that you can attach to the camera quite easily. And also you get this adjustable selfie stick, which is really convenient to have when you're vlogging, for example, or you're doing some action shots. And of course, if you use the magnetic mount, it's really easy to attach and detach the camera from this mount. I really love this system. It makes it incredibly easy to start shooting straight away and use something like this to extend the length of the camera from you. So quite convenient. The camera itself has a 1/1.7 inch CMOS sensor with an aperture of f2.8 and a field of view of 155 degrees, which is quite wide. And you have all sorts of different modes that you can use on this camera. I'm very happy to see that we have all sorts of different resolutions and frame rates available straight from the get-go on this camera. You don't have to wait for a firmware update or something like that to have a new frame rate. So you have 24, 25, 30, 48, 50, 60, 100 and 120 frames per second, all in 4K 16:9. And if you want to shoot in 4K but 4:3, you have 24, 25, 30, 48, 50 and 60 frames per second, so up to 60 frames per second if you want to use 4:3. And of course, in the lower resolutions, you have all sorts of different frame rates as well. You can use this camera as a dash cam, meaning that if you enable loop recording, you can set it to overwrite the footage every 5 minutes, every 20 minutes, or every 1 hour. So that's really handy if you want to take advantage of the small form factor of this camera and use it as a dash cam. The stabilization on this camera is insane. It's rock steady, of course, as we all know it, and we have horizon steady if you prefer to have the horizon leveled at all times. I prefer to use rock steady only, and I have to say I'm really impressed by the stabilization. And I think the best way to use an action camera and check out how the stabilization works is to put it on an FPV drone. Of course, that makes the most sense as you have a lot of vibrations, you do a lot of turns, and you know, the camera experiences a lot of turbulence from the wind and the air around it. So it's a really good test for the stabilization, and I'm really happy with the way this camera stabilizes the footage when put on an FPV drone. Now granted, I didn't have super long time with this camera, so I haven't had the chance to fly it in a lot of variety of situations, but still my first impressions were very good. And of course I will keep testing it to give you guys more impressions after flying with it for a longer period of time. Now you also have wide angle on this camera and ultra wide angle, which is something that the Action 2 had and I haven't used before. So for FPV more specifically, I think it doesn't really make a lot of sense to use the ultra wide angle because it kind of distorts some of the, you can see some of the trees are being really distorted in the footage, and it kind of looks a little unnatural to me. But for some action shots, the ultra wide angle really helps you to get more details into the frame. When I went go-karting, the ultra wide angle was very necessary, as you want to capture as much as possible from the track and all the environment around you. So ultra wide angle is something that I will definitely be using from now on, depending on the scenario, depending on my needs and the area where I'm shooting. As usual, the camera has a normal color profile, which is quite vivid and saturated. I like the look of it, but if you want to have more freedom over how the end footage will look like, you can set the color to be decine-alike, where it will be a little bit more flat and you'll have more freedom to color grade your footage yourself. And I was also told by DJI that in a couple of months time there will be a firmware update which will introduce 10-bit footage on this camera. And some people will be very happy about that. Some people wouldn't care because it's not a huge sensor after all, but still 10-bit video will be great to have on a camera like this, to have more freedom to color grade the footage yourself and just have more details in general. The user interface of this camera is very intuitive. It's very easy to get used to it. Everything is nicely divided into different sections, so you can easily access whatever you want to tweak and do it very quickly. And I definitely see some improvements in the fluidity and the smoothness of the screen because it's very responsive and it's just a pleasure to use. Now, when comparing this camera with its main competitors, the GoPro Hero 10 Black and the Insta360 One RS, you will definitely see that it's the smallest out of the three. It's the most compact out of the three. But let's do a little test to see how it looks and how it sounds compared to those two. So let's do a little bit of a test. This is the DJI Action 3. Let's do a little walking test to see the stabilization, to see the audio. Hopefully you guys can hear me well. Now this is the same test, but this time with the GoPro Hero 10 Black. Let's do the walking test. Check out Hyper Smooth. Maybe for vlogging this might be a better solution, might be worse. You let me know in the comments. And finally we have the Insta360 One RS. Let's do the panning thing. And now let's walk. Let me know which camera from the three you prefer, which one you like best, and which one would you pick for vlogging and for action shots. So I also tested the 4K 120 frames per second slow motion, which is something that I usually don't use too much of, but after checking it out, I think I will try to incorporate a little bit more slow-mo action shots in my arsenal from now on, because I'm a big fan of how the footage looks like. As you can see, my dog was very happy to come with me to check out this camera and try it out. And then you have hyperlapse and time-lapse mode on this camera, so you can use hyperlapse mode to spice up your footage in a lot of different ways. I tend to use it a lot when I want to emphasize on the movement from one place to another. You can create a little hyperlapse of you driving from one place to another to showcase that distance that you've covered. And when it comes to time-lapse, it's a great way to showcase again how much time has passed, and you have some predefined presets that I really like here on this camera. So you have crowds, clouds, sunset, or custom. And the difference between all of these is how often the camera takes a photo and how long the duration of the time lapse is going to be. And if you want to have full control over that, you can set the custom preset where you have full control over how often the camera shoots and how long the time lapse will be. And then you have full control over the final results of the time lapse. You can select to have all the raw photos that the camera takes for you, so you can edit them yourself and create your own time lapse. You can have a compiled video that the camera makes for you, so it's easier for you to use that clip or share it straight away. So you have a lot of freedom to select what you want the final result to look like. The price of this camera for the standard package is $329. If you want to have the adventure combo, it will set you back $439, but that will include 2 more batteries and the selfie stick and a few more accessories here and there. And they also sell something called the Extreme battery, which is a battery that works a little bit better in warmer than normal or colder than normal situations. That will set you back $29. And there you guys have it. This is the DJI Action 3, and these were kind of like my first impressions of the camera. I haven't had the chance to use it for a really long time yet, so I'm still very excited to get to know it myself and give you guys more in-depth look of this camera a little bit later down the line. So make sure you subscribe to my channel if you want to see that video when it pops up. This is Mike from Drone Supremacy. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao.